Hello everyone. If you regularly follow China's economic moves, you'll notice something that could change the entire world. China wants to challenge the US dollar with a gold standard. Can China actually do this? What's their play? Let's break it down in the simplest and most easy to understand way in this video. First, we need to understand why the world would want a replacement for the US dollar. As you know, the US dollar has been the king of currencies for decades. Most countries hold a large share of their reserves in dollars or US Treasury bonds. Why? Because countries believe the dollar is safe and not easily devalued. And the United States is a strong economy, so if you carry dollars, you can buy goods almost anywhere. Try taking Venezuela's currency abroad to buy things. No one will accept it. The dollar's the strongest because it's accepted across the planet. At one point, roughly 70% of global reserves were in US dollars. But in 2022, a major event shook that confidence. When Russia invaded Ukraine, the United States and its allies froze about 300 billion US dollars of Russia's reserves. In other words, they locked those funds so Russia couldn't use them. It's like you deposit money in a bank, and the bank suddenly tells you your money isn't yours anymore because they don't like your behavior. That made many other countries nervous. They wondered whether, if the United States can do that to Russia, a major power with nuclear weapons, it could do that to them someday. As a result, trust in the dollar weakened, and countries began diversifying their reserves, meaning they didn't put all their eggs in one basket. They sold US Treasuries and bought gold instead. Gold can't be frozen and can't be printed at will like paper money. It's a real tangible store of value that doesn't depend on anyone. China's at the forefront of this gold revolution. In recent years, the People's Bank of China has become the world's largest buyer. They've been buying openly, sending a message that China's building a new system where the world can use the renminbi as an alternative to the dollar. Look at the chart of China's gold holdings. Previously, it was almost flat, reflecting routine purchases. But after US President Trump threatened tariffs on Chinese goods around 2018 and 2019, the line shot up. China began buying gold at a record pace, publicly, for the world to see. They officially report about 2,300 metric tons, but analysts at Bloomberg and JP Morgan estimate the real figure could be 3,500 to 5,000 metric tons, including gold held in state-linked funds. Why is China doing this? Because it wants to re-anchor the renminbi to gold. As you may know, the US dollar used to be tied to gold, meaning you could take your dollars to the US Treasury and exchange them for gold at a fixed rate of 35 US dollars per ounce. People around the world felt secure holding US dollars because they could always convert them into gold, and gold is scarce, so it doesn't easily lose value. But in 1971, the United States abandoned the gold standard, leaving the dollar as paper money backed by confidence in American power. Now, China's strategy is to make its currency stronger than the dollar by introducing a monetary system similar to a gold standard. If the renminbi were pegged to gold, anyone holding renminbi could exchange it for gold at a fixed price. That would greatly boost confidence in China's currency. Decades ago, the United States left the gold standard and the world lost that anchor of trust. Today, China proposes to restore a gold standard to win that trust back. In a way, it's a slap in America's face, but can they really do it, given today's far more complex economy? To move in that direction, China's building the Shanghai Gold Exchange into the world's largest physical gold market and creating a gold corridor, a network of vaults across the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These are countries that in large part want to counterbalance US influence. How would the gold corridor work? Think of it as a chain of secure, connected vaults. Each BRICS nation keeps its own gold reserves, but they're linked. If you hold renminbi, you could redeem it for physical gold from the nearest vault. You wouldn't have to rely solely on China's word. For example, even if people in India don't trust China, they could still use this gold-based system if India's government agrees to let holders of China's currency redeem it for gold locally. In the past, Other countries hesitated to use renminbi because they feared China would hold their gold and not return it. Now, gold's being distributed in a way that resembles blockchain, a distributed data concept, but it uses real vaults instead of computers. Another major change in international banking rules came in July 2025, when gold was upgraded to a Level 1 asset under Basel Three. This is a set of rules agreed by the world's central banks. In the past, gold was a Level 3 asset, which meant that if a bank held $1 billion worth of gold, it could count only half of that value on its books and balance sheets. It's like you own a piece of land that the market values at $1 million, but when the bank appraises it for a loan, they value it at only $500,000. If land prices fall and you default and the bank repossesses it but sells it for only $800,000, the bank would take a loss. So even though the land's worth $1 million, they'll lend you at most $500,000. Now that gold's been raised to a Level 1 asset, it's held at 100% of its value, which makes it as strong as the US dollar in that sense. China wants to go further than Basel III. The idea is to turn gold into a high-quality liquid asset. These are ultra-safe and easy to sell and can be pledged as collateral for loans. Today, most borrowings collateralized with U.S. Treasury securities. For example, if a country wants to borrow to build bridges and roads, it usually pledges U.S. Treasuries. That keeps the dollar dominant because everyone needs dollars to buy those bonds. If gold becomes a high-quality liquid asset, then countries can use gold as collateral when they borrow, and they could borrow in renminbi without needing dollars. China's taking a bold risk with this move. If gold's defined as a Level 1 asset, then if the gold price is 150 million dong per tael, you could borrow the full equivalent from the People's Bank of China. Using a simple conversion, that's about 6,000 US dollars per tael, which is roughly 4,980 US dollars per ounce. But when the loan comes due, if the gold prices drop to 120 million dong per tael, which is about 4,800 US dollars per tael, or about 3,980 US dollars per ounce, a borrower might walk away and say to China, "Just keep the gold, I can't repay." In that case, China would take a loss. Given how volatile gold is today, lending against gold at a 100% collateral ratio is something almost only China would dare to do. Even so, this approach could make China's money more valuable and more widely used. In simple terms, China's sacrificing a small fish to catch a big shrimp. Now, let's talk about how China could use this system to fund development and compete with the International Monetary Fund, a Western-led institution that lends with very strict conditions. Take Africa as an example. That continent produces from 1/3 to 1/4 of the world's gold, yet it lacks infrastructure such as roads and utilities. Under the new system, an African country could deposit gold into a vault set up by China and then borrow renminbi from the BRICS New Development Bank. They'd use that money to build without having to borrow from the IMF. China would both lend and expand its influence while helping countries step away from the dollar. How would this affect the United States? Washington knows what's happening. In early 2025, the United States began bringing gold home from London, about 8,000 tons, the largest stockpile in the world. The official reasons cited include tariffs and audits, but the real motive's preparation. If the world shifts to a physical gold system, the United States will need control of real bullion. The US dollar could lose part of its reserve status, which would weaken it. For investors, the price of gold could surge. Banks, such as Bank of America, have advised holding around 30% in gold, up from 20% before, creating demand of about $2 trillion US dollars. Because gold can't be printed, its price could double in 5 years. That's why gold keeps getting more expensive. Some people ask, why care about politics? But if you ignore the contest between China and the United States and keep all your savings in paper money instead of holding some gold, your money may steadily lose purchasing power. Your wealth would shrink even if you never lose a single banknote. Beyond gold, the United States also has an important card, Bitcoin, to compete with China. Bitcoin's seen as digital gold. China uses physical gold to anchor control, while the United States uses both Bitcoin and stablecoins to compete. Gold represents classic trust, while Bitcoin represents modern trust. Whoever created Bitcoin, very likely the United States, showed extraordinary foresight by creating a system to confront a rival before that rival had even emerged. In short, China's building a parallel financial system that uses gold to back the renminbi and challenges the US dollar. This is a big game that affects everything from economics to politics. No one knows who'll win in the end, but one thing's certain: it'll affect our livelihoods. 100,000 US dollars in your home safe may be losing value over time. In a few years, it might buy only what 50,000 US dollars buys today. So we need to find ways to protect our money.